Hello, everyone. Today we're talking about the cases of Pamela Cahanes and Kathy Hicks. So these two women are connected by the person who murdered them. And while we are covering two people today, there's still very little information on this. I'm not sure why. There's even less somehow on Kathy. Like, when I went into this, I had Kathy's name on a list of people I wanted to talk about. And I could find very little, and I was about to have to put her in a mini cases video. But then I realized that she was connected to this woman, Pamela, and that's why they're in their own separate video together, is because they have that connection, and there's just slightly more information now. But the outcome for this is incredibly infuriating, and it's just really upsetting. But all the links I used to research will be down below, as well as a link to my other podcast, Sinister, and a link to my case suggestions form. And let's go ahead and get into this. So there's not a whole lot of information about Pamela and Kathy, who they are as people. So this is going to be mostly centered around the case itself. So 2 days after graduating from U.S. Navy basic training, which was held in the Orlando area at the time, Pamela, who was 19, was found dead. She had been beaten and strangled. Her mostly nude body was found the morning of August 5th, 1984, near a vacant home in an unincorporated Sanford, Florida. On September 18th, 1982, 25-year-old Kathy was found in a grassy slope along... I'm sorry, let me pause and figure out how I say this name, and then I'll be right back. So, on September 18th, 1982, 25-year-old Kathy was found on a grassy slope along New Anu Poly Drive. She was visiting from Georgia for a company softball tournament, and where Kathy was found was in Honolulu, Hawaii, and Pamela was in the Orlando area. So Kathy was killed first in 1982, and Pamela in 1984. So, just like Pamela, Kathy had been assaulted and strangled to death. Witnesses provided sketches of a male she was last seen with. He was African American, mixed identity, 5'11" to 6 foot, 150 to 160 pounds, clean cut with black hair and brown eyes. DNA and genetic genealogy linked a Navy man named Thomas Luce Garner to the murder of Pamela, which was his classmate. DNA directly linked him to the scene, although he denied any involvement. He was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. In 2021, less than 2 months into his sentence for killing Pamela, because he was eventually sentenced for that, he was indicted on another charge, and he was indicted for second-degree murder of Kathy Hicks. He'd been on the radar of Hawaii's law enforcement for a few months. Now they kind of had been watching him, and his DNA reportedly was entered into CODIS, and police claimed that they got a preliminary match in Kathy's death. So, co-workers claimed that she was in the company of a man called Tommy while she was there. So, Thomas Luce Garner is who we know killed Pamela, and then Kathy is then in the company of a man who calls himself Tommy. But this is where things get a bit infuriating. So, he was found guilty of killing Pamela, and he did get a sentence, although I'm not sure of the exact sentence, unfortunately. In 2023, however, the jury found him not guilty of killing Kathy, and he was acquitted for her death. The prosecutors were not allowed to tell the jury about him killing Pamela, so they did not know that he had already done this before, in the same manner. And they also did not know that DNA linked him to not just Kathy, but they also linked him to Pamela. And had they known that he had already been linked to one murder, which was done in pretty much the exact same way of Kathy, they might have realized that there was a connection there. And if I'm being completely honest, I have no idea why they weren't allowed to say this. I don't know if maybe they thought they would be like, some bias going into this had they already known that he'd done this before, or if they just wanted to like kind of make it fair. But by doing so, they kind of let Kathy down. They did not give her justice because they weren't allowed to know this. And obviously, Kathy's family, they're very upset about the result. You know, he did this to one other woman, and for whatever reason, the jury wasn't allowed to know what he had already done before. And because of this, their loved one now does not get justice. I would be really upset, though. Upset too. So even though, he's gotten life for Pamela, they still feel like he's as good as free because he was never like, yeah, you killed Kathy as well. He was never ever actually held accountable for that. And so they feel like he still got to walk away in a sense, even though he's going to be locked up for the rest of his life. And it's just really unfair, and I agree. I wish I knew why the jury wasn't allowed to know this information. I can only assume so that they could be free of bias, which is the point of the trials and everything. But still, it makes me really upset. But that is the case of Pamela Cahanes and Kathy Hicks, and the very frustrating outcome for Kathy. Thankfully, Pamela got justice. I am so happy for her family, and that this man is off the streets. I just wish that the same could be said for Kathy because she also deserves that justice. But thank you so much for listening to this and listening to Pamela and Kathy's story, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.